morning and welcome. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, turning in our teal hymnal to hymn number 1003 to join in singing our music for gathering, Where Do We Come From? Hymn number 1003. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Thank you. Please have a seat. Again, good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a progressive religious voice in our community since 1865. I'm Dusty Francis, and I'm grateful to serve this community as Director of Music Ministries. I am likewise grateful that you have chosen to share this time together, whether you are here in the room or joining us on live stream now or later. For those of you joining us for the first or maybe second time and are still getting to know us, we hope you might consider completing our newcomer survey at UUAA.org/newcomer survey to allow us to better connect you to your interests here. If you're new and joining us in person, please consider stopping by the Redmond Room for a newcomer welcome after the service. You'll find the Redmond Room just out the main sanctuary doors on the left side of the hallway, where someone will be waiting to greet you. Also following the service, I hope you might visit the Partner Church table in the social hall to learn more about a planned congregational trip to Transylvania in central Romania this coming September. Until then, we will spend our morning together exploring the many mysteries of the universe with some of the best philosophers of our time or any time, our children and youth. As University of Michigan professor Scott Hershevitz writes in the book that inspired this morning's service, every kid, every single one, is a philosopher. They stop when they grow up. So, let us each sink into our inner child and open ourselves to some of the mysteries of the world around us that maybe we've lost along the path of life. We are gathered in community. We are gathered in wonder. We are gathered for worship.
Ask questions all the time. Don't fear anything you don't know. Go out, be curious, for wonder allows you to grow. So I have a question for the young people first. What is a chalice? How about pointing? Pointing is allowed. Where is our chalice? There we go. Yes. The chalice is actually a cup or a goblet, and the symbol for Unitarian Universalism all around the world is a flaming chalice, and it symbolizes many things to many people: sacrifice, love, hope, reason. Years ago, during World War II, it was used as a symbol for refuge for those fleeing Nazi persecution. It indicated a safe space. I'm sure we can all imagine the symbol of refuge for compromised groups of people today, too. I invite Vanessa Campbell to come up and light our chalice this morning. For those of you watching online, Please take a moment to light your own candle or chalice and let us know in the chat where the chalice is lit. Please join me as we say these words. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Vanessa. I feel those aspirations from the chalice lighting from all of you here. But when we walk out into the world, many of us don't understand what is happening and why some human beings, wherever they come from, however they worship, who they love, or how they identify themselves, are being bullied, persecuted, and even erased. It is why it is so important that in this congregation, we know that we are a community. We are all here for each other. We all belong. Please join me as we say these words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, to help one another.
I Wonder. Words by K.A. Holt. Pictures by Kennard Pock. What if the sun is really a kite? Is cereal afraid of the spoon? I wonder if sandwiches get mad when you bite them. What if the ocean is one big water bottle? Do tires get tired? I wonder if dragonflies dog paddle. Do bubbles tickle everything they touch? Is a fly a baby in the morning and an old man at night? Does a grasshopper take hopping lessons? I wonder if cars and trucks speak the same language. Do windmills ever get tired? And where are all the unicorns hiding? Do you see it? I wonder if boy ladybugs are called boy bugs. And what do clouds taste like? Do my toys miss me when I'm gone? How does a clock know what time it is? I wonder if shoes feel sad when they don't fit me anymore. Could there be a galaxy in my belly button? I wonder if books read us too. What do stars do during the day? Is wind made or born? Do trees have dreams? I wonder if teddy bears ever cry. Why don't shadows smile when you smile? I wonder how tomorrow knows how to get here. I wonder why I wonder so much. Because you are wonderful. The end. I have to say, I love the idea of my books reading me. Are we live or are we on video? How do we know that everything is not a dream? When we're driving, are we inside the car's stomach? Why do we sleep? Who was the first person? Why are red, yellow, green, purple, etc. in the rainbow, but pink and chartreuse and some other colors are not? What's going to happen in 1,000 years? What would the earth be like without germs? Is there a difference between the brain and the mind? Just in this handful of questions, all of them real, and some of them asked by our very own UUAA kids, we are encouraged to explore theology, history, futurology, microbiology, neuroscience, color science, the simulation hypothesis, and the nature of dreams and consciousness. All of it is philosophy, what Professor Hershowitz's son Rex, who, along with his brother Hank, is basically a celebrity to me, calls the art of thinking. When Dusty first showed me the professor's book, which is titled Nasty, Brutish, and Short, Adventures in Philosophy with Kids, I immediately said, just from reading the back cover, this is a worship service. Because what is more UU than describing thinking as an art? We pride ourselves on being seekers of knowledge and wisdom. We value the search for truth and meaning. Ours is a living tradition, grounded in the wisdom of our sources and ever evolving as the world moves through time and space. But let's not get up on our high horse just yet. We are hardly immune from the ways our wondrous minds seem to atrophy as we grow up. As Professor Hershowitz says, philosophy is a window into some of the deepest mysteries about the world. Kids peer through that window all the time. Most adults have forgotten it's even there. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to set our grown-up sensibilities aside, look to the kids as our guides, and remember the window that has always been there, waiting for us to rediscover the magic of the world.
Social justice is one of the core values of Unitarian Universalism worldwide. Today, in our society, we hear labels like illegals or aliens, derogatory names for human beings, people just like you and me. These people need our attention. For our social justice connection this month, Bob Hospoderic, representing the Immigration Action Coalition, will explain what is needed and what we can and should do. Please welcome Bob.
The Immigration Action Coalition, or IAC, has the mission to educate about immigration-related issues, advocate on a local and national level for policy that aligns with our values, and act locally to support our immigrant neighbors. In the past few years, we've assisted the Q family in resettling locally. In the past month, we held a Know Your Rights workshop conducted in Spanish in Ypsilanti, and a Stopping Deportations program right here. That's not all. After this administration's cruel and unexpected cuts of funding for refugee resettlement, we have been called on by the local refugee resettlement agency to step in on an emergency basis to assist two families, a Nicaraguan family of 2, a mom and a son, and an Afghan family of 7. We've rallied around the Nicaraguan family after finding them living in almost entirely unfurnished apartment with no access to money and almost out of groceries. I'd like to say that that family is now enjoying an inviting, safe home and is thriving with daily, and I mean daily, support from IAC members and partners at St. Clair's Episcopal. It's good work. We've just now started our work with the Afghan family. As for other differently documented folks, IAC is also partnering with community organizations to support our neighbors impacted by immigration aggression and deportation with volunteers and funds. We've also identified a funding gap that we hope to bridge, namely supporting those who are having to make that difficult decision to be reunited with their deported relatives in their birth countries. We're calling this the Return with Dignity program. As we are establishing our commitment to being a sanctuary congregation and community, we're happy to see the use of the term sanctuary being applied here more broadly. To use Ed Lynn's words, our family home must be a sanctuary for our trans and LGBTQ neighbors, a sanctuary, thank you, a sanctuary in the event of climate crisis, and more. Here's the part where we talk about money. Today, we are officially launching the IAC fundraising campaign, which will support 3 refugee families, local rapid response efforts, and families seeking to return with dignity. Our ambitious but achievable goal is $30,000. $30,000 sounds large, so let's break it down. Based on our donation history, we're looking for 70+ donors. 10 of us who can contribute $1,000. 20 who can contribute $500. 40 whose donations average around $250. But of course, any size donation is welcome. Thanks to a few early donors, we have a good start with over $3,500 raised. Consider where you fit in to this collective effort, and if you'd like to discuss it, email us at immigrationaction@uuaa.org or catch us in social hour. You can donate through Realm, select the fund labeled IAC Family Resettlement Support. Checks can be made out to this congregation with IAC Fund in the memo. Maybe this isn't the first ask you've heard this week. It isn't for me. And yet, I'm going to keep saying yes. I think that if we join in doing this together, we'll find ourselves less scared and more sacred. As our sanctuary actions widen and deepen, we and other groups may require more support to respond as best we can. After our recent town hall, it is clear that we are fiercely uniting under this theme. Thank you for your belief in the inherent dignity and worth of every person, for your supporting actions, and for your generosity. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. It really helps to define specific goals with a plan for how to achieve them. We will be taking a collection this morning, as always, but I want to be sure that you all understand that what Bob was speaking about is very specific to the Immigration Action Coalition. It is quite urgent and very necessary. Now we turn to our weekly offering, which this morning will go to the programs and ministries of this congregation. We need to keep UUAA thriving and doing the good work here and all over the world. People are giving of their talents and their skills and their energy, their passion and compassion. Of course, we need financial donations, and I invite you at this time to give in a way that you are most comfortable. You may give online at uuaa.org/giving. You may text UUAA to 73256 or leave a check or cash in the offering baskets. As the ushers now come forward, I thank you in advance for your generosity. Today's collection for UUAA will now be gratefully given and received. Chalice Sparks, I love your name, and thank you very, very much for the beautiful gift this morning. As the ushers come forward, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit with generosity in your hearts and speak the words we use to dedicate our offering. Let us say together, to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
As many of you will already know, I don't have kids of my own, and to be honest, I don't want any. To be really clear, that doesn't mean that I don't love kids or that I don't treasure and cherish the ways in which I get to be a part of the lives of the children and youth around me as a teacher, a choir director, an uncle, That tall guy who can reach the thing that you can't? A service not exclusively available to children? Following my first year of full-time teaching, I decided to do some professional development that really transformed my teaching and, in some ways, my life. The advice from that summer that has always stuck with me was, as teachers, to stop thinking of ourselves as, quote, the sage on the stage with all the knowledge, and instead think of ourselves as the guide on the side, who is there to help the students head down the right paths of inquiry, to put the students themselves in the middle of their learning process, and to take our kids seriously as thinkers in their own right, not merely as receptacles for the wisdom that we are ready to pass down to them. Now, that seems sort of obvious now, but it's just not how I was taught when I was a kid, and I was taught by really good teachers. So in my own work, I started making more room in my lesson plans for student-guided inquiry, to following their questions to the unexpected and fascinating destinations to which they led. There was one of our annual assemblies where we had a guest speaker who spoke passionately about the need for criminal justice and prison reform. In the 7th grade advisory session that followed, I asked, my half-dozen middle school advisees what they'd thought of the assembly. After a bit of the usual sort of non-committal adolescent murmuring, there came a question. Mr. Francis, usually we have a speaker who talks about Black history at this assembly, but this guy just kept talking about jail. Why didn't he say anything about MLK Day? My brain sort of whirred into high gear, considering all the ways I could guide this discussion, making the connection for them about the carceral system in our country and what it has to do with race. But instead, I took a beat, and I looked around and said, yeah, what do you guys think? Those 7th graders spent the next month of our advisory sessions wrestling with philosophical questions about punishment, rehabilitation, prison abolition, questions of race and justice. It was amazing. But it was also hard, and it was messy. And they needed me. Kids are excellent philosophers, but they haven't yet learned all the skills and knowledge they'll need in life. But they also haven't yet learned to accept things as they are, just because that's how they are. They need to know it's okay to question everything, and that it's okay to not know the answers, even for the adults in their lives. When I was growing up, no one ever told me to stop asking questions, even though I asked a lot of them. But I still developed a sense that there were certain topics it was maybe better not to broach. Despite the more than 20 years between us in age, I suspect my amazing nieces and nephews are growing up much the same way I did, particularly the ones who are growing up in my same small town in Ohio. So I had to laugh when my then 10-year-old nephew quietly asked me during a visit to New York, "Uncle Dusty, is there really a museum of that?" I followed his eyes to the wall of the A train we were riding and saw the ad that had prompted his question. "A museum of sex? I guess so." Probably without ever being told, he had learned the same lesson I had learned as a kid about those topics. So, making sure his mom couldn't hear him, he asked, "What would they even have at a museum like that?" I did my best to swallow that little flutter of discomfort that I was feeling, and I said, "I have no idea, buddy." And then I told him, they have all kinds of crazy museums in New York, though. There's even a museum of math, which did the intended trick. He spent several incredulous minutes wondering who would ever want to spend their free time learning more about math before, we wandered into our next topic of conversation. It was a perfectly innocuous interaction, and it's a fun memory, but There's a part of me that does still regret a little bit steering our conversation away from a topic that my own experience and upbringing had made me a little uncomfortable discussing. I wonder where that conversation might have led us if I had led it. And I wonder how many other conversations I have missed out on because I was convinced that I was too busy or that the topic just didn't matter enough to make the time for. Or because, intentionally or not, I had communicated somehow that this was the kind of question that, really you just shouldn't be asking. Kids see the world differently than we do, but they wrestle with questions exactly as important and urgent to them as ours are to us. I am doing my best to take those questions seriously. Not only for the benefit of the kids and youth who ask them, but also so that I can learn with and from them along the way. And who knows where that might take us? Maybe even someday to find out what they really do have in that museum of math. Our second story for all ages today is A Bucket of Questions, almost answered by Tim Fight. Dear reader, the person who wrote this book is wiki wonky, giggly googly, jingly janky, and 100% pooky pooky. And just because an adult can almost answer a bucket of questions doesn't mean those answers will hold water. Signed, a friend. Now, this bucket might look empty, but it is actually full of questions. So, question 1. What kind of questions fill up a bucket? Is it A, real questions, B, meal questions, C, seal questions, or D, all of the above? I think this bucket of questions sounds fantastic. Question 2. Why do seals clap? A, for a hermit crab race. B, for a message in a bottle. C, for a fishy ice cream cone. D, because they are happy and they know it. These answers are ridiculous. I hope the next ones are more informative. All right, question 3. Why do kids lose their teeth? Is it because A, kids are untidy? B, because their teeth are so tiny? Where is the lost tooth in this messy room? Or is it C, to make room for a lucky raisin? You know what they say about these answers? Finders keepers. All right, question 4. What are hot dogs actually made of? A, math and science. B, magic and mystery. C, metal and money. Or D, hot dogs are made of those lost teeth from page 3. I gotta tell you, these answers aren't even in the ballpark. Okay, question 5. Hey, what is at the bottom of the ocean? Is it A, water? Or B, more water? Is it C, a diamond fish? Or D, a delicious mermaid barbecue? Excuse me, I have an urgent question about this book. Why is this book so black and white? Is it because A, my miniature zebra needs somewhere to hide? Can you find her? Is it because B, all the colors are sleeping? Or could it be C, because the rainbow rooster only sings on page 37? All right, go back to sleep, colors. There are more questions left to almost answer. Question 7. Now, I'm not looking at anyone in this room, but why are old people extra wrinkly? Is it too long in the tub? Is it B, each wrinkle is for someone they love? Is it C, to hold their giant sunglasses up? Or is it D, to make babies giggle? Finally, some answers that aren't totally off their rocker. Okay, question 8. The biggest question in the bucket. Where do babies come from? The truth is, babies come from everywhere. They come from everywhere. The end. Wait! I still have so many questions. Okay. We get one bonus question. When is it time to stop asking a bucket of questions? A, when you have a bucket of answers. B, when you have a bucket of diamonds. C, when you have a bucket of hot dogs. Or D, none of the above. Okay, the end, again. Dear reader, the real answer to that bonus question is E. Never stop asking a bucket of questions. Just keep filling it up with new ones. Signed, a friend. The end. Really, this one's the end.
It's hardly breaking news that kids ask lots of questions, a whole bucket full. I read about one psychologist that listened to recordings of conversations between preschool-aged children and their parents. Small kids ask approximately 2 questions a minute. That's nearly 1,500 questions in 12 hours. And that's assuming your kids aren't waking up in the middle of the night with yet more questions. And that is not a wise assumption, by the way. But she also observed, as have other social scientists, that the rate at which kids ask questions starts to slow down around age 5. And it continues to drop precipitously as they make their way through grade school. As a former classroom teacher, I can affirm Harvard professor Tony Wagner's assessment that, quote, somehow we've defined the goal of schooling as enabling you to have more right answers than the person next to you. And we penalize incorrect answers. And we do this at a pace where we don't have time for extraneous questions, end quote. Now, I'm not here to go on an extended rant about our educational system. Come find me in the social hall after the service if you want to have that conversation. And to be clear, I love teachers, and I think they are doing the best that they can in a system that is working against them. Clearly, our schools have lost their way. So, how do we continue to nurture our mini philosophers and their philosophizing? What can we do to encourage kids to keep thinking like kids, to keep asking questions, to sustain their curiosity throughout their lifetimes? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple. We, the adults, should try thinking like little kids ourselves. In addition to keeping them fed, clothed, rested, safe, and loved, I've discovered that engaging with my own children in their endless, relentless inquiry into the workings of the world is not only vital for their spiritual growth and development, but also to my own. And I haven't always been great at it. I think I hear, "Mom," about 1,500 times a day. And it's almost always followed by a query of some kind. And usually this happens when I'm in the bathroom. It can be exhausting, and there are times when I answer their enthusiasm with the dreaded, because I said so, or I'm busy right now, and I always come to regret it. Professor Hershowitz writes, kids wield why like a weapon, over and over ad nauseum. At the start, they'll do it for fun. They want to see how many explanations you'll offer. But as they get older, they start to realize that a well-placed why can expose the shaky foundations of your authority, or just drive you insane. It definitely drives me insane. But it also reminds me of how little I know and how much I still have to learn. So why not recognize our children as wonderful collaborators? Why not ask them questions and question their answers? Do you think we're dreaming right now? Why do you think we sleep? What do you think the world will look like in 1,000 years? Are we inside the car's stomach? I don't know much, as my children will attest, but I know that their answers are infinitely more cool and interesting than mine. What better place to encourage this kind of deep thinking than here, in a community that affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person, young and old, and that covenants to search for truth in love. Gareth Matthews, author of The Philosophy of Childhood and other books in that vein, writes that, quote, "Much of what we adults tell children is highly questionable at best and deserves to be challenged," end quote. Well, that cuts deep. The fact of the matter is that we know so little and we pretend to know so much. The small philosophers among us are constantly generating and testing theories about how the world works, puzzling things out, problem solving, seeking explanations, shifting perspectives, and thus building empathy, questioning their own assumptions, and casting doubt on what grown-ups tell them. They are the true artists, using their abundant imaginations to create, generate, and innovate. And yet, if you ask the kids whether adults take their questions seriously, what do you think they'd say? Why don't we ask them? Do adults take your questions seriously?
No.
Maybe? Well, that was a very definitive answer. Maybe our adult sensibilities find their questions weird or silly or naive or unserious. Maybe they are all of those things. So what? The truth is, as our professor writes, if we want our kids to think deeply about weighty issues like truth and justice, we need to get them in the habit of thinking this way about whatever happens to engage them, hot dogs included. Here's the heart of the matter. We are all responsible for nurturing our children's natural wonder. And if we truly want to make the world a better place for our children and grandchildren, don't you think they should have a seat at the table? Maybe most of the seats? You might be surprised by how much fun you can have and how much you learn. So let's get serious about hot dogs and colors and germs and unicorns and dreams and shadows and toys and whether cereal is afraid of the spoon. And then we can get serious about love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity.
looks like to you?
Yes, you do. It looks red.
Right. Well, no. I know what red looks like to me, but I don't know what it looks like to you.
Red looks like that.
Yeah, I know that's red.
So what's the trouble?
I don't know what red looks like to you.
It looks like that.
Right, but I don't know what that looks like to you. I know what it looks like to me.
It looks the same, sweetheart.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do. That's red, right?
Mom, we call the same things red because you pointed to red things and told me they were red. But what if I see red the way you see blue?
You don't. That's red, not blue, right?
I know that we both call red red, but red could look to you the way blue looks to me.
Stop worrying about this. It doesn't matter. You see just fine. And scene. What a fantastic example of what not to do when a kid comes to you with a philosophical question. We call this puzzle, first credited to John Locke, the shifted color spectrum. And the dialogue we just read was a recollection of a conversation that Professor Hershowitz had with his mother when he was the ripe old age of 5. I imagine that many of you may have pondered this mystery at one time or another. As the professor says, if a kindergartner can do philosophy without reading Locke, we can too. And so, for the next few minutes, we want to encourage some philosophical conversation with your neighbors, young and old, kids included. This is intentionally open-ended and self-directed. Perhaps you have a story to share from your own childhood, an amazing question that a kid in your life once asked you, or perhaps you might ponder some questions of your own using the prompts that we offered to our kids in preparation for this service. If you could have any question answered, any mystery solved, what would it be? What question have you always wanted to ask, but for whatever reason you didn't ask? And finally, if you could talk to God or Mother Nature or the universe or the spirit of life, what would you ask? If you're joining us online, we encourage you to type some of your thoughts or queries in the chat. Talk for about 5 minutes. Do some philosophy together. conversations, and now we sing.
Already this service, we have affirmed the inherent worth and dignity of every person. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit, turning to hymn number 1007 in our teal hymnal as we sing together the line, "It's telling me that I'm somebody." This is "There's a River Flowing in My Soul," number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul. As we go forth, I encourage each of us to do exactly as Dr. Hershowitz recommends and simply set our grown-up sensibilities aside so that we can continue to view the world with new eyes in all of its strangeness and wonder.
As we extinguish our chalice and go forth into the world, take with you those wise words of Professor Hershowitz. Kids are alive to that strangeness and wonder, at least until we train them not to be. I hope you'll help the kids in your life hold on to it, and I hope just as much that you'll find it for yourself.
May it be so.